There's something truly special about the smell of a home-cooked meal filling the kitchen. It brings back memories, doesn't it? Maybe it's the aroma of fresh-baked bread like your mother used to make, or the sizzle of vegetables in a pan, reminding you of family dinners that felt like the heart of the home. But here's something interesting. Learning to cook new recipes, even after 70, isn't just about making delicious meals. It's about something much bigger. It's about independence, creativity, and even adding a little extra joy to your everyday life. Now, some of you might be thinking, I've been cooking for years. Why would I need to learn new recipes now? Or maybe cooking was never really your thing, and you've relied on simple meals or takeout for most of your life. Either way, there's something powerful about stepping into the kitchen with fresh curiosity, trying something new, and realizing that your ability to care for yourself and nourish your body is still completely in your hands. In today's video, we're going to talk about why learning to cook new recipes after 70 can boost your independence in ways you might not expect. We'll explore how it can keep your mind sharp, improve your health, and even strengthen your social connections. And by the end of this, you might just find yourself inspired to pick up a new recipe, grab a few ingredients, and experience the simple joy of creating something delicious from scratch. But before we dive in, let me remind you, this channel is all about real conversations and real solutions. If you find value in what we're sharing today, consider hitting that like button, subscribing, and joining our growing community. And most importantly, I'd love to hear from you. What's a dish you've always wanted to try cooking but never have? Share it in the comments. I bet you're not alone in your curiosity. Now, let's talk about something fascinating, how learning new recipes can actually keep your brain sharp and engaged. You see, as we get older, it's important to challenge our minds in new ways, and cooking, believe it or not, is a perfect way to do just that. When you learn a new recipe, you're engaging multiple parts of your brain at once. You're following instructions, measuring ingredients, adjusting flavors. It's problem-solving and creativity wrapped into one. Think about the first time you tried cooking a dish that was outside your comfort zone. Maybe it was a complicated pastry, a new way of making soup, or even something as simple as using a spice you weren't familiar with. At first, it might have felt overwhelming, but as you went through the steps, you probably found yourself getting more and more confident. That's because cooking requires focus and adaptability, skills that keep your brain active and engaged, which is incredibly important for cognitive health as we age. In fact, research has shown that engaging in new activities, whether it's learning a language, playing an instrument, or, yes, even cooking, can help slow cognitive decline and keep your memory sharp. Cooking is especially beneficial because it's a hands-on activity that involves sensory experiences like touch, smell, and taste, all of which stimulate different areas of the brain. And here's something interesting. Creativity in the kitchen doesn't just keep your mind sharp, it also brings a sense of accomplishment. There's a real joy in looking at a meal you just made and thinking, wow, I did that. It doesn't matter if it's a simple homemade soup or a full gourmet dish. What matters is that you challenged yourself, tried something new, and succeeded. So, if you've ever felt like you're stuck in a routine, eating the same meals over and over again, why not mix things up? Try making something completely different. A new kind of salad, a homemade sauce, or even baking bread from scratch. Not only will you keep your mind active, but you'll also experience that little spark of excitement that comes from creating something with your own hands. And speaking of creativity, let's talk about something else that happens when you start exploring new recipes. It naturally leads to healthier eating habits, because when you cook at home, you have full control over what goes into your food. But we'll get into that in just a moment. Now, let's talk about something that's just as important as keeping your mind active, taking care of your body. Because the truth is, the food we eat has a huge impact on how we feel every single day. And when you start experimenting with new recipes, something interesting happens. You naturally start making better food choices without even realizing it. Think about it. When you cook at home, you have complete control over what goes into your meals. No hidden preservatives, no excessive salt or sugar, and no mystery ingredients like you'd find in processed or pre-packaged foods. You decide exactly what you're putting into your body, and that kind of control is powerful. A lot of people don't realize just how much our eating habits affect our energy levels, digestion, and even our mood. Have you ever had a meal that left you feeling sluggish afterward? Maybe a heavy takeout dinner or something loaded with processed ingredients. Now compare that to how you feel after eating a fresh, home-cooked meal, one filled with whole ingredients like lean proteins, vegetables, and healthy fats. The difference is night and day. And the best part? When you start learning new recipes, you open yourself up to a whole world of healthier options that are still delicious and satisfying. It doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes it's as simple as swapping out one ingredient for another. Maybe you try using olive oil instead of butter, or experiment with fresh herbs instead of relying on salt for flavor. Small changes like these add up, and before you know it, you're fueling your body with the nutrients it really needs. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Healthy food doesn't always taste great, but that's the beauty of trying new recipes. You get to explore flavors and techniques that make healthy eating enjoyable. Ever tried roasting vegetables with just a touch of seasoning? The natural sweetness that comes out is incredible. Or how about making your own salad dressing instead of using store-bought ones packed with preservatives? It's little things like these that make home cooking so rewarding. And let's not forget the impact this has on long-term health. Studies show that eating a balanced home-cooked diet can lower the risk of heart disease, diabetes, and other chronic conditions. Plus, cooking for yourself means you're more likely to eat the right portion sizes, something that's easy to lose track of when you're eating out or relying on frozen meals. But beyond just the health benefits, cooking new meals also brings back a sense of control over your own well-being. There's something really empowering about knowing that you can provide for yourself, that you don't have to rely on takeout or frozen dinners to get by. And that brings us to something else that's really important: the freedom that comes with being able to make your own meals. Because when you cook for yourself, you're not just making food. You're making a statement that says, I am still in charge of my life. And that kind of independence is something we all deserve, no matter what age we are. But there's another side to this that's worth talking about: how cooking new recipes can actually help reduce reliance on takeout or prepackaged food. Because let's be honest, sometimes those quick meal options seem like the easiest choice. But are they really? We'll talk about that next. Now, let's be honest. Takeout and frozen meals can feel like a lifesaver sometimes. When you don't feel like cooking, when you're too tired, or when you just don't know what to make, it's tempting to grab something quick. But here's the thing. Those convenience foods often come at a cost. And I'm not just talking about money. Have you ever looked at the ingredients list on a frozen dinner? Some of them have things in there you can't even pronounce. Preservatives, artificial flavors, excessive sodium. It's all in there. And while one meal here or there won't do much harm, relying on these foods regularly can take a toll on your health. Processed foods have been linked to everything from high blood pressure to inflammation, and they often leave you feeling bloated or sluggish. And let's talk about takeout for a second. Sure, it's nice to have someone else do the cooking, but have you noticed how restaurant portions always seem bigger than what you'd make at home? That's because they often load up on extra ingredients, oils, butter, salt, to make the food taste richer. It's easy to eat more than we need, and before we know it, we're consuming way more calories than we realize. But when you cook at home, you get to decide exactly what goes into your meals and how much you're eating. And here's the best part. Once you start experimenting with new recipes, you realize that making something delicious doesn't have to take hours. A simple homemade soup, a fresh stir-fry, or even a quick omelet can come together in minutes, and it's always going to be healthier than the processed alternative. The more comfortable you get in the kitchen, the less you feel the need to rely on frozen meals or takeout. And that's a big deal, because the less you depend on prepackaged food, the more control you have over your health. And really, it's about more than just health. It's about confidence. There's something incredibly rewarding about being able to cook for yourself. When you know you can step into the kitchen and whip up something delicious and nutritious, it changes the way you see yourself. You're not just making food, you're proving to yourself that you're capable, independent, and in charge of your own well-being. And this confidence spills over into As we age, social connections can sometimes become harder to maintain. Maybe kids and grandkids live farther away, or friends have moved or are busy with their own lives. It's easy to fall into a routine where meals become something you eat alone, in front of the TV, without much thought. But cooking can be a way to change that. It can be a reason to invite people over, a way to start conversations, and even an opportunity to strengthen relationships. Imagine this. You try a new recipe, something a little different from what you usually make. You taste it and think, wow, this turned out pretty good. Now, instead of eating it alone, you call up a friend and say, hey, I made something new today. Come over and have lunch with me. Or maybe you bring a dish to a gathering and watch as people enjoy something you created. That feeling, the joy of sharing something you made, is powerful. And it's not just about feeding others. Cooking together can be a fun activity too. If you have grandkids, involving them in the kitchen is a great way to bond. Kids love mixing, stirring, and tasting, and it's a perfect chance to pass down family recipes and traditions. Imagine your grandchild years from now saying, I learned how to make this from my grandma, or my grandpa used to cook this for me. Those are the kinds of memories that last a lifetime. Even if family isn't close by, there are still plenty of ways to connect through cooking. Community cooking classes, recipe swap groups, or even just sharing a dish with a neighbor can open doors to new friendships. Food is universal. It crosses generations, backgrounds, and lifestyles. It's something we can all relate to. And here's the best part. Every time you step into the kitchen, you're not just making a meal. You're keeping your mind sharp, your body nourished, and your independence strong. You're proving to yourself that learning doesn't stop at a certain age, that creativity isn't just for the young, and that every day is an opportunity to try something new. So, if you've been stuck in the same routine, eating the same meals, relying on frozen dinners, or takeout more than you'd like, consider this your sign to shake things up. Try a new recipe this week. Experiment with a new ingredient. Invite someone over for a meal. Cooking isn't just about food. It's about confidence, connection, and the joy of creating something with your own hands. If this message resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's a favorite recipe you've learned later in life? Do you have a go-to dish that always brings back good memories? Share your experiences in the comments. I read everyone. And your stories could inspire someone else to start their own cooking journey. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps keep this community growing, and together we can make these conversations even more meaningful. Remember, it's never too late to learn something new, and you're never too old to enjoy the process. Keep cooking, keep exploring, and most of all, keep embracing the independence that comes with it.